Welcome to a Bradford City Up the Chicken special. This podcast is hosted by a Bradford City fans independent group.
All right, good evening, guys. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm just going to lay out a couple of things I want to say before we get started. No one is above anybody here, so everybody's entitled to speak. I ask that people be respectful. People in our club and who support our club have differing views, which is fine. It's all right to have an opinion. But the objective of what we're trying to do tonight is really just get, an overview of what you feel, what you'd like us to look at, whether you've joined us or not at this moment in time, and see where we go. There's no ego here. We're not trying to basically, mess people around. We genuinely want to be a force for good for our supporters. We've had feedback from various people who feel that the supporters board are not kind of representing them, rightly or wrongly, if you have that opinion. And so Bradford City Independent Fans Group was formed on the basis of that we wanted to try and give an independent voice to supporters and pursue the things that are important to them. And there's a variety of different things, and we can go with the rup out aspect of things. We can go with sparks out. We can go with gent out. But I want to try and get some clarity and take the emotion out of things, simply because we won't get anywhere if emotion plays its part. We have to basically kind of put things together and follow a process of getting in front of the club and getting them to acknowledge what we want as fans, because we are the biggest stakeholders in the club in terms of the spend that we commit to, all of us, in terms of season tickets and merchandise and concourse revenue, and then as well as away travel and tickets away. There's a variety of things that we as a supporter base do, and we are the biggest supporter base in this league, and I think it's about time that we had off-field progression as well as on-field progression. So, for clarity, I'm Steve Hamilton. I'm the chair of Independent Fans Group. You might know me, might already follow me. I'm at Bantam1873 on Twitter. So, the reality today is that we want to try and do this transparently. I don't want to bore you and I don't want to keep you for absolutely ages, but I do feel that we've got differing views across the supporter base. We've got splinter groups who obviously are running their own protests, which I have no problem with that as long as it doesn't do damage to the club. But I'm going to invite, people, if they want to speak, they can do. But what we want to get out of this tonight is really what you want us to pursue, what you want us to do. And we'll follow that up and we will basically report back to you all. If you're not a member at the moment, then you can go join us at bradfordindependentfans.co.uk as a membership format. It's free. The reason we're taking that information is that if we can get above 1,500 members or to 2,000 members, we can be recognised as an official supporters club, and the club have to acknowledge it. So that's what the reason for that is. And we just want you to share our content and engage with us. That's it. So ground rules, as I said, just be respectful. We know obviously some fans have different opinions to others. We just want you to listen to that view, respect it, and put an argument across if you have one. Anybody's entitled to speak. All you have to do is just put your hand up and I'll make you a speaker. There's no bother with that. And that's it. So our plans at the moment are that we know that there is a real chorus of toxicity in some cases. We have some fans who support Ryan Sparks, some fans who don't and want rid of him. There's a big contingent of people who want Stefan Rupp to sell the club, and there's another contingent who don't really have a view on it. And then there are other aspects of things, such as things like safe standing, which we've had reports back to us, and people asking where has that gone to, the problem behind the COP in terms of when people are exiting. and a variety of other things. Some people are upset about on-field matters with regards recruitment and turnaround of managers, etc. So, does anybody want to really put their point across, and have your say? Just let me know. Johnny, do you want to basically have a say on anything at all? You're a better podcaster than I am. Okay, while we're waiting, let's just look at where we are right now. We've just had somebody request. Welcome, Wayness. Thanks very much. The floor is yours, my friend. I'll mute and shut up, and then I'll give a summary of where we are as a club right now. Over to you, Wayness. Mike's with you.
Hi everyone. I suppose I'm one of the sparks out. I think he's been in the club now for a number of years. We've not moved forward, and I just don't believe what he tells us anymore. The prime example being that he was adamant that Graham Alexander was our number one candidate, despite the conversations he'd had with Cowley's. That's come out. He's told us in the past that Stefan Rupp got us through COVID by investing his own money, and since come out and said recently that he's not put a penny of his own money into the club. So he has so many faces, he could be a town hall clock. I just don't trust the guy anymore. I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but I can't see a way forward with him as a marketing manager. He knows his stuff. He's developed those skills over the years. Marketing wasn't his trait. That's not what he went to university for and studied. That was all editing for sports magazines and things like that. So that's what his background's in. But he's became a successful marketing and, to an effect, a media manager. He got the job through Julian Rhodes' recommendation to become our chief operating officer, and I just don't think we've progressed under him. So I'm one of the people that would like to see that change before we look at even considering getting new owners in. I'd like to see that change first.
Wayness, do you think that he can salvage his position at this moment in time? Is there anything that he probably could do? And I'm going to play neutral on this, I'm afraid. But is there anything that you feel that he could do that would cause you to have a change of mind and support him moving forward?
From my perspective, no, because I think that trust has already gone now. I don't think I'll ever get that trust back. I know that when back a couple of years ago, he had his own Twitter account, and he was quite open to people coming on and asking him questions, and being open and fronted about it. But then they got personal attacks, and I get why he came off Twitter and other social media to protect himself from that. But from my own personal opinion, I just don't trust him anymore. There's just no way back for me, simply because of the number of falsities that he keeps coming out with. It just seems to be one after another. Whenever he does speak, he seems to contradict something he said previously. So for me, no. Others might have a different opinion. They might say, well, give him the benefit of the doubt, give him another chance. But for me, that trust is gone. That's broken.
I think that's fair enough, Wayness. I've heard various different things. I don't think it's helped with the media today, with Cowley's coming out and giving that interview. That's pretty much confirmed, which I know a good percentage of Bradford fans were questioning about whether he was telling some porkies during the recruitment process. Okay. Johnny, your views on that, and have we got anybody who wishes to speak who is pro Ryan? I'm not trying to set things apart, but I think it's important that we get a balanced view. Johnny, over to you. Maybe Johnny's not going to speak. Okay, what I will say right now is that the problem I've had as a fan, take out my role in what I'm doing here, the problem that I've had as a fan is that there is lots of smoke and mirrors in terms of Ryan Sparks and Rupp and things like that. And I've been trying to get clarity. And I know that right now we are in year 7 of a 10-year plan of Rupp's ownership. In which we started, I think it was the year when we were in the playoffs in League One, and now we find ourselves in League Two, languishing a little bit at the bottom, which nobody wants. Rupp obviously had Rahic at the time, and I don't really want to go over ground that people already know. I'm probably just saying it for clarity, really, more than anything. But Rupp, suggests he was duped by Rahic. Rahic, when Rupp came out with, we're going to do good things, and I'm going to make it up to you all, etc., etc. What we've seen then is quite a large turnaround of managers. Sparks in question, obviously, the McCall thing sticks in my mind, where he offered him new contracts and then fired him a couple of weeks later. But is there anybody who basically is who likes Ryan, who thinks he's done a good job or thinks he's done an adequate job and has fallen foul? Because I think we kind of need to hear both sides. For me, I don't think it looks good in terms of his media that he's given in a couple of times where he's been caught out in various things. I felt that the Derek Adams kind of comment on Radio Leeds was something he should have just basically said, I've got really no comments, mate, good luck, let's move on. I didn't think he'd made us particularly look good. But at the same time, he led us through COVID, and the club's still here, etc., etc. So I'm having to try and look at it both ways. But my job really here right now is that we wish to pursue where we go. We've pushed for a fans forum. And, we think that's urgently required with the club because we think communication has dipped. And I'm going to shut up now because Johnny's ready to speak. So over to you, Johnny.
Yeah, all right, Steve. Hope you can hear me now. I've moved over to my phone because my PC is rubbish. So going back to like what you're saying there about organising a fan forum, I think that is a fantastic idea. Communication at the club, I think, is being a bit rubbish at the minute. And then going back to your safe standing, what got announced on the 12th of April 2023, I just don't understand how come it's been like 7 months and nothing's come on from the safe standing, because I would love to go in that safe standing area. I love standing at away games and stuff like that when you can do. It's just communication really needs improving and stuff needs changing.
I think it's it's one of those things, isn't it? They took media on with regard to safe standing. They were going to pursue that heavily, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. And this goes back to my point, Johnny, of of communication, really. And the fact is that if you make these statements to the press, you've got to then follow through with regards, that statement. That's the reality of it. At least give updates on this is where we are. And I think that for me personally, I think that the communication from club to supporter has dipped dramatically. I feel that the only time they communicate obviously is match day stuff, but also then to try and just sell us stuff. And, there's really nothing of substance there in updating us on club plans. And I think right now we've got this real mix of, and people call it toxicity. I think it's frustration from the fan base because we're in the position we are on the field. There, obviously, we've not gone well with the manager, situation. It took quite a long time to recruit. And I think a multitude of things over the last few years have just built up and built up and built up. And definitely in the last, I'd say, 8 to 12 weeks, we've seen an increase in that level of vocality, shall we say, from various sources across the internet, on social, etc. And so we're in this position now where we felt, okay, it's time to try and do something. The supporters board, they do a very tough job. People might not agree. People might basically have a different viewpoint on that, but they're trying to basically kind of engage with the club. And so we decided that we were going to invite the supporters board and representatives from the supporters board as well as Bantham's Trust. Now, I believe, unfortunately, they have their AGM in the trust tonight, which is fine. I don't know if anybody is here from the supporters board who'd like to speak. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But we put that request out in good faith because we feel that we need to have a united front on various things. And the supporters board have the ear of the club at the moment. We've had feedback that people don't feel that they're effective with that responsibility right now. But I've seen some commentary over the last couple of days of the process for engaging with the supporters board. But from right now, I'm interested in this fans forum and getting some clarity and some answers for people. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I've just got one more thing to say, and then I'll disappear, but I'll still listen. So just like looking at the social media for Bradford City, you're right about they only tweet out really now, obviously goals when we win. They don't communicate very well, but then I'm just looking on the social media now, and like 2 and a bit hours ago, vacancy, we are welcome applicants for a full-time head of marketing. We've got one at the club who's currently doing like Ryan Sparks. Surely they would go to him and then bring a new CEO in or a director of football to take over that position.
And this is the problem, Johnny. We don't know. And if anybody is here from the supporters board, I would urge them to basically kind of engage with the club and challenge them. Because I think now we're, as supporters, because of our interests and our monetary spend, etc., we have a right to constructively criticise the club where appropriate. I'm not saying that it's a free-for-all, and I completely, vehemently disagree with the attacks on Ryan Sparks. Personally, I don't think really any City fan really likes to hear that. There shouldn't be any personal attacks on anybody. But constructively, I think the club right now needs to be challenged. We are, as I said earlier, 7 years into a 10-year plan from Stefan Rupp. The man is never here. We know really from feedback from Ryan Sparks himself that the club is self-sufficient, so investment is not in place. And I'm just going by what I've read here, so people can challenge me on that. It's not a problem. I've got no problem with it. But we are a big beast in in the old fourth division. That's the reality of it. And we have all this fan base, so we are a good brand. But nobody really knows, no fan really knows, based on the commentary I've been reading on social media, no fan really knows what Stefan Rupp's plan is at the moment. They have no idea. And I know that the Hard Truth podcast put pressure on him and invited him to go on there. And, whether he's accepted that or not, I don't know right now. But, ultimately what ends up happening is that people give an opinion on Rupp. Basically, somebody then comes across and discounts that and asks them to basically kind of back that up factually. and it ends up then into an argument. What I think we need to look at is actually formally ask the club, and this is the reason why I think the fans forum is really, really important. I think it has to be sooner rather than later, because we know as Bradford City fans, when we've had success, the unity across the club drives that. It's the Saturday, Tuesday thing where the ground's buzzing, it's basically loud, it's intimidating, and other clubs don't like coming there when we're like that. Now we've got fragmented kind of support in the COP because of decision, with North West Corner, etc. Whether you agree with that or not is up to you. And, I don't think that people think it's as intimidating now as ever, but that's because the fans are kind of distracted with things off field and are worried about things. The tennis ball kind of protest is a prime example of that, and good luck to those guys. I have no view on it either way. As long as it doesn't damage the kind of club or we don't get fines, etc., then that's up to them. What I would like to do is I'd like to try and unite fans across the board. Now, it might be a pipe dream, I don't know right now. And I don't really have all the answers, which is why we've asked members to come on board and join us to try and drive this forward. But I do know that the toxicity levels that are out there at the moment can't continue. And something will break if we don't try to do something proactive with this club. Some people have argued that Rupp really is at the end of his time. But, right now is how do you force a man who has a lot of money, who has no interest in football, allegedly, and has not really formally put the club up for sale from what I can see. And I've tried to check with contacts within media, etc., about that, and he's been quiet really since the WAGMI aspect of things. So there's no indication as to whether he actually does want to formally put the club up for sale. But the reality is that I think a lot of fans have made a decision now that they want to see Rupp leave the club and sell it to somebody who has an interest in what we're trying to do and will be vocal. So I think that, from our point of view is I could come up with a 12 million agendas and try and push it through, but if it doesn't have the overall support of our fan base, then the reality is that me and my colleagues on the steering board of our independent group wouldn't really get very far. We want more people to join us. We want more people to, if they're passionate about Bradford City, come and help us. We're open to that. But at the same time, we really need to look at the agenda of what we do to drive forward. And, my next step really is to write officially to the club from our fans board, requesting that kind of fans forum as a matter of urgency, and then moving from there in terms of whatever we need to do then. But that'll be driven by you guys. Does anybody else looking to speak, or anybody want to challenge me, or in a nice sort of way, or any other comments about where we are as a club and what they'd like to see? Because I've done a lot of talking, and it's rough on the old vocal cord after a long day. But has anybody got any other views? I'm really, really open to people's view. Frank, you're on. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I'm quite vocal on it all, so I'll just give my 2p for it. I think many clubs have protested for less. I think when you look at it, obviously it could be much worse, but could be much better. The position that we're in is just not acceptable. We've gone from 20th, right, in Ryan Sparks' tenure to 19th. It's not a good improvement at all. And you look at it on paper, he's got Mark Hughes in, he's got Derek Adams in, and on paper it's a good, but the appointments have been unsuccessful. He seems very rash when he's making decisions, and he's not really been able to settle on a certain man. I feel like I'd really respect Ryan Sparks. I've lost a lot of trust for him now, but I'd respect him if he went to Stefan Rupp and said, look, I'm struggling here. Can I get a director of football in, or can I look at other options, to help me out in the board? Because I feel like he's kind of a sole man, and when Stefan Rupp's as disconnected as he is and not really too knowledgeable about football, it's kind of Ryan Sparks controlling the whole club in a sense, because Stefan Rupp doesn't really know what he's looking for in a board member because he hasn't got a clue about football. So he's kind of just left Ryan Sparks to run the whole thing. And I don't think it's fair on someone who's got very little experience. I think in terms of marketing, he's done really, really well for the club, and I'll always back him to the hills for that. But in terms of a footballing perspective, he's got it all wrong. And I think it'd be best for the club if he stepped back, and pursued some sort of marketing role within the club, and let someone else who knows football become the CEO and try and take us forward. And as for the protest, I think it's been a long time coming. We're on the brink of the Championship, and now we're in a relegation battle in League Two. It's not exactly good enough, and something needs to change. And I think the common thing is what we're seeing with the protest is, these fans trying to be negative, and why can't you just support the lads? And I think the main thing I want to get across is we all want the best for the club and for us to move forward, and that's kind of the aim of it all, is to try and better the club and make a change and strive forward. That's kind of all we're doing, and it's not a pretty way of doing it. I don't think anyone really wants to be doing it, but change has to be done, and this is kind of the only way to do it. And tennis balls, while it might seem silly, it has worked for clubs. Hull City did it, and they've got new owners and got a promotion. Coventry City did it when they were in League Two, and they put tennis balls on the pitch, and they got 2 promotions. Nearly got in the Premier League last year. Charlton have done it. They've got new owners now. Bolton have done it. Blackpool have done it. Countless clubs are doing it. And whilst it might seem laughable, the proof's in the pudding. It does work, and changes happen. And I think while we are where we are because of poor performances, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're a massive club, and we shouldn't be where we are. And I feel like that's majority down because of poor decisions being made at the top. And I, for one, just want to see change. I'm not the oldest fan in the fan base by country mile, but all I've seen is I've not really seen much success as a Bradford fan, and I know the club's destined for much, much more than that. The main asset of the club is the fans, and a lot of them are starting to lose touch with all, fans that have been here for years just simply don't want to go anymore. When you lose such a key asset, which seems to be the only asset at the moment, we don't own the training ground, we don't own, the stadium, and when you lose that key asset, it's just going to push owners further and further away. And if we keep performing at the standard that we are, we could easily go into non-league. And while obviously there are some really bad teams in the division yesterday, like your Forest Greens, like your Suttons, we are not too big to go down. Any club in the division can go down, and it's becoming a real possibility. We are closer to rock bottom than we are, to the playoffs, and it's a real possibility this year that we could be going down. And I feel like if we went to the National League, it'd completely kill the club, because then a real core of the fan base just will not come to the club anymore. And since we are self-sustainable, like Ryan Sparks has said, zero investment has come from Stefan Rupp. We are self-sustainable, meaning a lot of the revenue and the budget relies on the fan base coming to the games, buying tickets, buying stuff, buying merchandise. And when you lose that core, it can really, really affect the club, and it can, ultimately send us bust. And I don't think that's what anyone wants, and we all should want the best for the club. And protests are amazing. I don't think anyone really wants to do it, but that's how change happens, and it needs to happen because we are not in a good enough spot at the moment, and things have to change.
That's fair enough, Frank. It's right. So, and just something I want to just because I'm playing devil's advocate, Frank. There's plenty of clubs who have been sold that didn't own their own grounds. I'm just playing that as a level playing field. The power of Bradford City is its brand and its fan base, and that would be an attractive proposition as a businessman. I know economically that would still be an attractive proposition to a prospective buyer. What I'm struggling with at the moment is if the man has no interest and he's looking to recoup his money back, why are we not seeing it formally for sale and out with agents, etc.? You're right about the kind of decline. We have seen a decline. That's factual. Nobody can really argue with that. But I feel that right now the club needs us, and I think that the problem that we've got is we're in a vicious circle. If we deny revenue to the club, then we put off prospective buyers and prospective kind of budgets. If we support the club, how long does this process carry on for? How long before people do so? And we're seeing it already on timelines on social channels of people going, I'm done, I've got better things to do with my Saturday, I'm not prepared to do it anymore. Which I think's really sad, to be fair.
I mean, it's not a good overall state of the club. I think you know, I've obviously, like I said, I've not been a fan for too long. I'm not very old, but you know, I think this is one of the worst it's got. You know, we have been quite an established, you know, second, third tier side in our history, and I think this is one of the lowest points. Obviously, we've never been in the conference as a football club, and it is one of the, you know, realistic possibility. And I think this is the lowest that we've been as a club. And I don't know if this is the general consensus, but you know, with Graham Alexander, I don't think he's obviously the best manager in the world, but you know, we don't have a choice other than to back him. And I think you know, his track record is really, really good. You know, he did well at Motherwell, and you know, but I think what the general thing I'm seeing is that he works well on a big budget. You've got your MK Dons and your Salford to have really competitive budgets in this division, and I'm not sure how that's going to fare at Bradford. There's talk of the fourth biggest budget, but we simply aren't seeing it. There's not many big fees coming in like you see at Wrexham, and obviously I know it is obviously a separate kind of ownership where, you know, they've got a significant amount of money than us, but we aren't seeing enough change. You know, if we did have such a big budget and we have all this money that we're claiming, you know, we certainly wouldn't be training at a school, and we wouldn't have these issues with leasing the stadium. And I think if it gets any worse, then it is a massive issue, because it is the biggest stadium factually in the division, and it's going to take a lot of money to keep it up and running and renting it out, and with all the maintenance, and obviously we got the pitch done and that might need doing again soon, and it's a lot of money being pumped into a stadium which could easily, you know, lose a lot of its fan base. It might not even be 50% full next year regardless of the division. And yeah, I think as the seasons go on under Rupp, and you know, I don't think he's a bad guy at all, Stefan Rupp. You know, he's kind of sold the dream by Eden, and it's a difficult thing to get out of, because at the end of the day, unless he invests, which I can't see him doing, he's going to take a loss. And I think he just needs to accept that he is going to take a loss and try and claim profits whilst he can, because it's only going to get worse from here. And the assets that he's got, which is the fan base, you know, like I said, that core is not going to be around for much longer if things continue in the trajectory that it is. And I think, yeah, things have just got to really change soon for the better. And, you know, I think regardless of results, again, you know, if we start winning a string of games, I think from now on, I think that's always going to be there of, you know, Rupp has taken us backwards and things need to be changed, because we are at a point now where, despite us being very close to the playoffs in terms of we're about 7 points away, you know, it is a pipe dream and it looks like it's going to be another failed season. I just think how many more seasons in the basement of the Football League can a fan base take, especially when you've been at such heights. You know, we were in the Premier League, you know, 2 decades ago, and now we find ourselves in League Two. It's just, I'm sick of it. I'm sure a lot of fans are sick of going to these stadiums, no disrespect, but Barrow, Sutton, Forest Green, it's just not stadiums, it's not teams you want to be playing, and it's extortionate prices as well that you're paying for some of these things. And when you gather like the travel and stuff like that, it's sometimes you can pay upwards of £50 for travel, and it's not worthwhile doing. It's expensive, and when you're getting battered, it's certainly not a fun thing to watch, and it's not worth anyone's time at the moment. And yeah, I'm really kind of going in circles a lot of the time. I speak about it a lot, and I'm kind of got the same thoughts in it every time I speak about it, and it doesn't get any easier talking about it. You know, I'd love to be saying, you know, there's lots of things to be positive about for Bradford at the moment, but I think it's the worst it's ever been. Fans are, you know, arguing with each other, and the fan base seems really split and disinterested right now. And I think a change of ownership is needed, not only to get the club on the back and track, but to bring fans back and bring the fan base together and really strive for success.
Thanks, Frank. Johnny, you've had your hand up for a while. Apologies, mate. I just didn't want to interrupt Frank.
So Frank, are you saying, like, I've got a couple of things to say. Frank, are you trying to say, like, Ryan Sparks is being thrown in the deep end? And basically he's been thrown in deep end to run a club while Rupp is playing with his cars, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's I think he's done a good job, like I said, marketing. You know, he's brought in a lot of money for the club, and like I said, I'm always going to be thankful for that. And I think with the position that he was in, it was a really, really difficult. And when he took over, we were 20th in League Two, and I don't think it could have got much worse than that. But from a commercial point of view and a marketing point of view, he's clearly very talented at what he does. But I think some of the comments that he comes out with as well, it comes across as really arrogant for someone who hasn't achieved much. You know, what he said about Derek Adams, He sounded like he's someone who didn't deliver what he set out to do, and that seems a lot like Ryan Sparks has said himself. He's kind of contradicting himself. No room for mediocrity is a quote that comes out a lot, and it seems like we are settling for mediocrity. We're 19th in the division. It's simply not good enough. Leaner and meaner. The squad's about 30, and there's just players that are simply not up to par in the division that shouldn't be anywhere near League Two.
I must admit, he's made some real faux pas in some of the media interviews that he's given.
Yeah.
Even from my point of view, I've gone, that's not good.
It's a good start. What are you saying?
Just as a bit of an exercise, guys, I just want who's listening at the moment, and you can show us with an emoji who actually feels that Rupp needs to go right now as a fan. If you just press the emoji, just so we can see you light up. Didn't seem to be many. Okay, what about Ryan Sparks? Who's in the position where they feel that Ryan Sparks now needs to leave the club or move away? Now we got a lot more kind of emojis then come up. Okay, that's just the interesting thing. That's all. I think I think it's coming to a head. Johnny, was there anything else further you want to say? Because we've got Labib, who's a good lad who suffered in Nottingham the other day, that I'm going to approve.
So I've got two things to say quickly.
Okay.
First thing is, just looking at league table, we're currently 19th. We're 10 points away from the playoffs. But I personally think we're going to be safe this year, and Forest Green and Sutton are going to go down. And then my second question is, with the tennis ball issue, if 3 or 4 people do it, they're going to easily get caught out there and probably get fined, because apparently you can't throw anything on the pitch and stuff like that. So what's people's take on the tennis ball issue and basically league position?
Overall, not good enough.
$1 million question, isn't it? I mean, we've had a really poor start from looking back. We're 10 points behind where we were at this point last season, albeit we've got a new manager in. In terms of, I think I've lost my train of thought there. Do you want to say anything, Frank? Are we going to move to Labib or?
Yeah, just touch up whilst I've still got a train of thought, and then I'll let others speak. But yeah, I think, like I said, it's not a great thing that we have to do it, but at the end of the day, we aren't left with much choice. There's clearly not many people taking note, and I think, like I've said with the tennis balls and stuff like that, it's the proof's in the pudding. It does work, and media attentions, people, there's eyes on it, and people see it and stuff like that, and I think it's a good way of getting some sort of media attention. I think chanting and complaining on social media, Ryan Sparks isn't going to tell Stefan Rupp, and Stefan Rupp's certainly not going to care, because he doesn't really seem to have any form of social media that he interacts with the fans with, and he's not going to be checking the hashtag, refreshing it, seeing what everyone's saying. It's not going to happen. So I feel like this is the best possible way to get stuff through to Stefan Rupp without kind of relying on Ryan Sparks to do so. I feel like Ryan Sparks isn't going to want to tell Stefan Rupp that this is happening and this is where the club is, and we're 19th and there's protests, and Stefan Rupp's going to think, oh well, what's wrong here, and he's going to turn to Ryan Sparks, who's kind of been his wingman in all of this since Eddin's left, and he's going to look at Ryan and see what's wrong and stuff like that. So
what I will say, Frank, about those guys is that they've at least got off the backside and tried to do something. Yeah. Whether we agree with it or not, they've coordinated and they've tried to do something. Yeah. I still stand by that we're much better together rather than in splinter groups across the board. But the reality is that I've got to commend them. At least they've tried to do something based on what they believe in. And they're obviously extremely unhappy guys. Personally, for me, my own opinion, I'm not one for throwing things onto pitches, but that's just me. Yeah. But I do respect them for trying to organise something, coordinate something to try and get a point across. So that's fine. I'm going to bring Labib in now. Thanks, Frank. Labib, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks, buddy. I saw you in Nottingham, basically enjoying yourself?
Yeah. It was a good pre-match and a good post-match, but the bit in between wasn't particularly enjoyable.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. What's your point, buddy? Where are you right now in terms of the club, and what do you feel that we should move forward with as agenda? As you know, we're pushing for an emergency fans forum. We think it's crucial.
Yeah. The first thing I'd say is I think Frank, very articulate young man, I think made some really good points and pretty much in agreement with everything that he had to say. The other thing that I'd mention is that I'm a little bit on the fence with the tennis ball protest. I fully agree with what you said earlier, that fair play and congratulations that they've got themselves organised and they've got them sorted and they're actually doing something. So, that's a constructive kind of way forward. Whether you agree with the manner of the protest or not, I think the fact that they've got enough fire in the belly really to actually action it. What the point I actually wanted to make, I couldn't click on the emoji to show you what I felt, but I've been moaning about Rupp for about the last 2 years. For anybody who's bothered to kind of listen, so I'm firmly in that camp of the fact that he needs to go. But it's really going to be a question back to you in terms of organising a fans forum, and I'm sure you've kind of spoken to other organisation of supporters boards. What other kind of types of protests that you know of that seem to have worked and that can be effective? So obviously we've spoken, I've seen other people talk about trying not to pump money back into the club and kind of hit the club where it hurts. And again, I'm not sure how constructive that would be, because as Frank was saying earlier, we're a self-sustaining model, so the only money we get to spend on players and the squad is the money we bring in through the commercial kind of side of the club, because as we know, Rupp doesn't invest. So thinking about not spending money, is that really viable? Thinking about the tennis ball protest, is that really viable? So from a general kind of protesting point of view, what would you say is something that works, something that would be effective, something that could actually engineer change? Because essentially, I think that's what we need to see. We need to see some kind of changes coming through at the club. So that was really a question rather than an answer.
I think to be honest with you, Libby, I've seen it in other countries where fans have gone into the ground and then left like 5 minutes into the game. And that obviously doesn't affect in terms, because obviously season ticket holders, if you leave, you already paid for the ticket. But I've seen that happen. Then obviously you've seen protests outside before the game, which are quite loud. To be honest with you, I haven't really looked that far ahead yet. And as I often say on Twitter when we're posting, I don't have all the answers right now, which is why we're trying to build the group so that we can find effective ways to, if we need to, protest. But we felt the first appropriate steps was you have to give the club a right of reply. And me personally, I've had doubts about Rupp myself for a couple of years, but I in this role I have to keep those things neutral unless I'm instructed by the fans, because otherwise I'm then put my own agenda in front of everybody else. But I think that protests, as long as they're coordinated well, can have significant impact. But I don't know what we'll move forward with as of yet. We're still looking at that. We're trying to throw our energy into trying to get this forum first.
If I can just pick up on a point that you mentioned. You mentioned that the club has got a right to reply, and I absolutely agree. Rules of natural justice and all of that. But we kind of need to articulate, I think, what they need to reply to. So the fans need to make the point. So that's something I think that just needs to be coordinated.
And that's what we're trying to do really tonight. The whole point of this was I wanted to try and get supporters board here. I wanted to try and get trust, and I wanted to try and get somebody from the club. I didn't hold out much hope of getting somebody from the club, but if I could get fans here and they were willing to basically kind of give their opinions, then the battle plan then of we've already come up come up with, look, let's try and get a fans forum, because at least we can get our fans in there who can then ask those questions. That was my strategic thinking about it, Labib.
Yeah.
And the next steps for us then is to basically start to coordinate that with. If we have to speak to the supporters board, we will do so to try and coordinate that. But ultimately, we'd like to basically kind of move forward as a group, as a united group of many fans, and push that ourselves. But right now, we're not recognised as an official supporters board by the club, and to do that, we have to have the numbers.
Yeah. So how many numbers are we short?
Oh, we're well off. I mean, at the moment we have around 200 members that have signed up, even though it's free. But to be fair, we kept quiet for a while because things seem to be progressing okay. And then it's obviously over in the last 12 weeks that things have exploded, and all of a sudden, then we've tried to speak up to position, because obviously nobody needs anybody like us when things are going well. Yeah. But when things are going bad, then people look to us to see what we'll do. And then even then with Bradford fans, and obviously I'm old school, I went to my first match in 1980, and I'm from West Bowling originally. But the fact is that even City fans now are sceptical in terms of what we're trying to do, because they suspect that there's an agenda there from us, and we're trying to basically trick people. We're not. I'm honest as the day is long, and I could do something else with my time right now. I'd rather be supporting a well-run, well-organised club where everybody's happy, rather than trying to organise kind of action to force an owner to sell potentially, or force a CEO to basically resign. I'm not saying those are what we're trying to pursue, but based on the feedback from our fans, that's what basically they want to see. So. Yeah.
I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to go. So hopefully I'll be able to jump back on later. But thank you for covering those points.
Thanks, Dave. It's been nice to speak to you, mate. Wayne, sorry, mate, you've had your hand up for a while. Do apologise.
No worries. I think it's just the same few people that's talking, so I'm quite happy. Just a couple of points. Just going back to the comment that Frank made about the tennis balls. So I think somebody asked a question. It might have been Labib actually, about whether there's been any what's the word I'm after? Any issues if clubs have been found guilty of throwing balls on pitch. I think it's happened quite a few times now. Frank gave a lot of good examples of where it's worked. There are a lot of examples where it hasn't worked as well. So Southend, for example. Reading, I think, was another club that's done it. So there are examples where it hasn't worked as well. But in terms of the specific question of has there been any repercussions, not that I'm aware of. So you can take that. Whether they would find Bradford City guilty and throw the book at us to make us a statement that it shouldn't happen because we're already subjected to issues with regard to flares and a couple of fan protests, fans running on pitches, that kind of thing. So we've already got eyes on us anyway. So whether they throw the book at us because of that and then the tennis ball on top is another matter. So that's something we will need to consider. In terms of the tennis ball itself, so I've seen a lot of people saying let's do this protest, but what is the actual protest about? Is it about RUP? Is it about sparks? What is the purpose of it? Because I haven't seen anything that says, let's take a tennis ball, throw it on the pitch as a protest against X, Y, and Z. Nobody seems to know or provide that evidence as to what it is. Now,
to be honest with you, Wayne, I've seen kind of like people who commented on it who have, and again, this is kind of me giving an opinion and hearsay, but it looks like it's trying to force Stefan Rupp to sell the club. Though I can't confirm that. And if anybody's on from those guys who've organised that protest, please put your hands up to speak. It's fine. You've got a good platform here, and you can speak to the rest of the fans that are on here. But my understanding, Wayne, was that it was to do with trying to force Rupp to sell the club.
But he's in Germany, so as Frank pointed out earlier, he probably won't even find out about it. So,
well, I've heard he might be at the game on Saturday.
Pardon?
I saw a tweet somewhere or a post suggesting Rook might be at the Yakuton Stanley game.
I can't see that happening. We had a 17,000 attendance the other week and he didn't turn up for it, so I can't see him turning up for an Accrington Stanley game. When
Can't confirm it, Wayne. I just saw a couple of posts mentioning it.
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised that Sparks has not told him, because if rumours are true that they've already tipped off that this is going to happen, I can't believe they would invite Sparks at Rupp over to sit in that type of an atmosphere, knowing what's going to happen. I just can't see it.
I suppose time will tell, why, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah,
right.
that's what I want to know. Basically, what is the agenda behind it? If what you're saying is it's trying to force Rupp to sell, then do we think throwing balls on the football pitch is going to make him sell if he's not that interested in selling? I'm not sure that'll work.
Yeah, that could be bubble C, won't we?
Yeah, but they were my 2 points. And
thanks, Wayne. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for taking time to speak to us as well. Jamie, sorry you've been waiting patiently. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me speak, guys. I think my main question would be, I personally think Stefan should sell, but people have mentioned, I think Frank mentioned earlier on about Hull City and about Charlton, and they've done the tennis ball protest. The tennis ball protest has not made them sell the club, in my opinion. In all those clubs, people had come out publicly and said, I want to buy this club. Nobody has actually come out publicly and said, I want to buy Bradford City, apart from one organisation, which was WACME, and I personally think we did well to stay away from them. But nobody has actually come out and said, I want to buy this club. You look at clubs that have been sold, and people have actually come out and said, I want to buy these. Whether the owners have sold or not, people have come out and said, I want to buy them. If there is any organisations out there that want to put money into Bradford, come out, say it. That's the only way of pushing Stefan Rupp into having these conversations. In terms of protests, my honest opinion is that any protest should be outside of the 90 minutes on the pitch. Those 90 minutes, we should be supporting those lads on the pitch. No matter how they're performing, we should be supporting them. Throwing tennis balls onto the pitch after 7 minutes. What support is or encouragement is that giving to our players on that pitch? We should be the 12th man here, and it's not the players' fault what's happening. They've been paid to do a job. Whether or not they should be on the pitch or not, that's a personal opinion. But we should be encouraging them from kick-off to 90 minutes. And any protest should be outside of that. And
so Jamie, sorry to interrupt you, my friend. Just obviously, because the whole purpose of this tonight is we want to try and look at how do we progress as Bradford City on and off the field. A lot of our fans are unhappy at this moment in time. Admittedly, obviously, they have the right to protest and constructively. And I take your point. We should be the 12th man. The reality is that I would say that some fans would argue that they've been the 12th man for many, many, many years and pumped a lot of money into being the 12th man. So, ultimately, where do you sit at this moment in time? Playing side aside, what's your position in terms of how you feel about the club and where you think it needs to go?
How I feel about the club at this moment in time, we have got somebody working for the club in a high position that is in the wrong position. We've got somebody, Ryan Sparks, who a few people have mentioned. He's fantastic about bringing commercial business in. That's his job. That was his role. He's never been a CEO. He's never been involved with football before. So, as an owner, I think Stephen Rupp, if he's not going to sell yet, he needs to make sure the best people are in the best positions. Ryan Sparks' best role, in my opinion, is that of commercial manager. That's what he's been very good at in his past. He did a great job at Featherstone in that role as commercial manager, but I think he's got a role that he's not suitable for, in my opinion.
Okay, that's a fair point. Anything else, Jamie? Are you okay?
No, that's good, thanks.
All right, listen, thanks for your thoughts. I appreciate that. Has anybody else got any other opinions in terms of the Rupp in, Rupp out saga, or the Ryan Sparks in and out? How do we feel about recruitment in the last couple of years? And what about the general state of the stadium? Is there anything that needs to be pursued there? I'm sure that there's somebody on from the supporters board who can take that back with them, or who's on here. Go ahead. Anybody want to speak? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so do we all feel that, obviously we you know our position, I've mentioned it a number of times tonight, we're looking to basically try and represent you as supporters and try and unify things a little bit and be proactive and go constructively challenge the club where we feel appropriate or where you feel appropriate. The removal of Ryan Sparks, etc., might not be within our power, but feedback can be given constructively back, and then we see what happens. But what we can try to do is impress upon the club that we do feel that this fans forum is crucially important. Would many of you attend that if that came? Do you feel that you would go and rather than be on social media, would you go and have asked those questions of the current hierarchy at Bradford City? Has anybody got any thoughts about that? Go on, Jamie.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody remembers, but in the summer we had a fans forum where fans could get tickets to go and watch. I went to that. I asked some questions at that fans forum. If any question was asked of the club that the club didn't agree with or that necessarily wasn't happy clappy comment, Ryan Sparks immediately shot that down. If we are going to have a fans forum, which I think we need, then the club needs to be open, the club needs to be transparent, which Sparks has already said he is, but the club also needs to listen to fans' feedback. There's no point in having a fans forum if they're just going to shoot down every comment that maybe not to the club's liking.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I wanted the supporters board representatives here, because I wanted to see how they dealt with the questions that were put to them on a monthly basis that are submitted, because we don't really hear back on the progress of those, and whether the supporters board have put difficult questions. We always ask Jamie Rayner to challenge kind of the manager and Ryan Sparks when he's doing interviews, and to be fair, he sometimes does. And I just think that you open up a forum where it gives chance to fans to ask those questions. They'll then decide what the next steps are after that. Because the reality is, if they feel that they're being, gaslighted, or that actually being told porcupines, then you will see protests spring up all over the place. And I think as we go on further, with the things that happened this summer, with Hughes going, and then obviously recruitment not being good, etc., and then on-field performance not being good, I think that we're getting to a stage now where you're going to start to see some real nastiness, I think, because people are getting really, really angry, which is the reason we've organised this tonight. Is at least that it gives people a chance to speak and get it off the chest, but it also gives us an indicator of what we need to be chasing. So, for us, we're going to carry on pursuing that forum. I'm quite happy to basically compare it and have somebody from the club and literally, and we will run it. I've got no problem with that. But the reality is that I don't really want to do it, if I'm being honest. I don't particularly want to be out in the limelight if I can help it. But I do want us to basically move forward as a club, and I do want us to move forward as a supporters base. Because ultimately, everybody just wants to roar on, Bradford's here, that's it, and get 3 points. So I'll ask, I'm going to wind down a little bit. I'm going to ask again if anybody else wants to speak, and also if there's any other things that we need to best prepare our agenda to submit when I write to the club officially on behalf of the supporters and our members. And if you aren't a member yet, please go to our website and sign up with us. The more we get, the better. The bigger that we can get, the more chance we have of being recognised as an official supporters club of Bradford City. But is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Is there anybody else who'd like to add something to the agenda which we write to the club with on your behalf? And we will be, I more than likely will probably be writing an open letter, so everybody will see what we've written on your behalf, because I don't really want any shady aspect of things happening. Johnny, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so with like everything you've been saying here, in my opinion, everybody needs to work together. You work well in numbers. So when you do write the letter, obviously try like on here, like you're doing, get people's feedback. We need to kick the club up the arse. People try to get a fans forum, but you will probably not get anywhere with that, I reckon, until probably May next year.
We have to try though, Johnny. I mean, look, things are getting pretty serious out there. I mean, you only have to start looking at comments throughout bear in mind, you used to get a rough few comments on Twitter and things like that after a bad result, but we've seen a constant flux of negative comments across the board now, and I genuinely think that our fans have had enough. For whatever reason, some of them are more outspoken than others. Some of them are kind of relaying information that's wrong. Because they've seen it on somebody else's Twitter feed, but it's not being validated and checked. So, people are being hit with that. But then a lot of the information that people are saying is correct in a lot of cases. And I know Wayne has asked for kind of clarification on various bits of information that fans have been basically putting forward, and nobody's responded. I think that for us, to challenge the club, as we intend to do on your behalf, is that we have to be factually correct in what we put forward, and the agenda has to be backed up with facts, rather than just pulling anything out else. If somebody's unhappy because the toilets are blocked at the moment, then I would say that there's bigger things to look at the moment. But the reality is that even those things need to be pursued. The stadium is in a state of disrepair in some cases. So who's challenging the club on that, and what do we do? There's a variety of different things, but going back to your point, Johnny, we just need to get action in place that is agreed by the biggest consensus and is factual and correct, and is right to do. There's no point chasing some unrealistic kind of pipe dream. That takes time. Right now, we need short-term objectives that actually will satisfy the fan base right now, so that we can build that as a foundation and move forward to chase the other things.
Because to get you, should we say, tell me if I'm wrong, but like a movement going, you probably need to go through like the TNA, Keithley News, local papers to get your reputation up, spread your word, get your word out there. And we're going to try and do that, Johnny. I mean, look, we're in the infancy of what we're doing. We've been planning it for quite a few months. We've just kept quiet for a little while to see how fan base kind of was dealing with what was going on out there. Now we feel now is the time, but the reality is that we will fail if the fan base doesn't support us, and they have to believe that we're actually kind of
dedicated and honest and trustworthy, rather than being sceptical of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is be a voice for our supporters, and chase down and constructively kind of challenge the club where appropriate. That's it. We have no other agenda than that. Thanks, Johnny. Wayness, sorry, mate.
No worries. Again, it's just another one of these really small ones that probably can take a back burner for now whilst we look at the bigger issues. But when we do get a little bit of normality back, if we do get a bit of normality back, one of the things I want to see is the supporters coming combined again back into the Kop. I just do not think it's worked. The atmosphere is, even before all of this, even last season when we were winning the occasional game and we were up around the playoffs, there was still no atmosphere. We haven't had a proper atmosphere in the ground now, even though we're getting 15 up to 18,000 regular games. There's just an atmosphere. Often I'm in the upper tier of the Kop, and you can often hear them chanting to each other rather than combining, and it just doesn't work.
Well, in the old days for me, Wayness, when I used to go in the Kop when I was a boy, it was always in the centre of the Kop towards the back, and the sound just used to carry from there. And then it used to get the whole ground. I mean, I don't think there's anything more that makes the hairs stand up on the back of your neck when you've got a full Kopping voice. And then Midland Road and like the Sunwind just basically kind of all in chorus. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the Northwest Corner, it was trialled, it didn't work. I suppose it ties it back into what we started with the standing areas. Let's get that combined and let's see if we can get something done with it.
I'd really like standing areas in Valparaiso. I really would. I think the atmosphere would be immense. And when you go to away games anyway, like Sutton, everybody was standing up at Sutton. It was a great atmosphere. It's just crap on the pitch, but it's just phenomenal when you've got full voice. The Hughes, is it Hughes? I can't see the full name, so it's over to you, my friend. You requested to speak.
It's a funny old name. I call the Hughes era, which is now over.
Welcome, mate. Thanks for coming along.
No problem. I think the key point, and it was you that actually brought it up, is the lack of a plan. Now, this is not something that's exclusive to the Rupp era. We've had no plan really since we've been relegated from the Premier League. I know this has been a bone of contention for a lot of the blogs and podcasts, that there's just no coherent plan of what we are doing going forward. The lack of communication from the football club's not helping with that. So we know that they're working extremely hard on things such like the commercial aspect of the club.
Well, David Longo's heading that up, isn't he, mate? So Sparks did do a good appointment in David Longo, and David Longo's done a phenomenal job from a commercial side. But the reality is that do you feel that the communication from club, productive communication, to fans, has dipped significantly in the last 18 months?
Massively. I mean, you look back to David Baldwin, even before James Mason. David Baldwin was fantastic for talking to the fans. He always had an awful lot of time for them.
It was great.
Pre-season, he took fans around the stadium and showed them around. I'm not typically into that type of thing, but I thought I'll go down to have a look around, and he took people to one side and had a chat with them and asked, what the club could do. You felt as though you had a point of contact, and it was quite a big point of contact considering his position. James Mason was excellent being on social media and talking. Now, I know that Frank mentioned earlier about Ryan Sparks getting criticised on Twitter. Absolutely, there's a line that you should not cross in that aspect. You should never, ever make personal. Despite how you feel about his performance, he's still a human being at the end of the day. But I think it's a massive weakness, and that may be an age thing, if that's a bit slightly disrespectful, is maybe a little bit inexperienced in that aspect. It's not like managing a normal company. You need to speak to your fan base we're not just customers; we are fans at the end of the day. So yeah, the communication's huge. The lack of plan. I know this is something that's. I mean, going back to the old boy from Brazil day, and obviously I see Jason's on here on width of a post. The lack of progression for the youth players and things like that. We've got a great academy, and there doesn't seem to be any pathway to get these players into the first team. There's a hell of a lot there that needs planning, and we don't know what the plan is. You could be more patient about our league position, even though it's quite precarious, if there was a plan, and there doesn't appear to be one.
Well, I hark back to Stockport County, who are doing phenomenally well, but they basically engaged with their fan base and said, this is our 10-year plan. And they regularly update their fans on, this is how we're progressing, this is what we're doing with our academy, this is what we're doing. And it's a great, great plan. But I agree, as a fan, taking this supporters group hat off, as a fan, what worries me is there doesn't seem to be any consistency in terms of approach. There doesn't seem to be, these are our goals, this is what we're heading for. I think that's part of the problem with fan unrest right now, is that there's nothing for them to hang their hat on. All we seem to get is, we've got a competitive budget. Okay, that's great. But what are we going to do as a club? How are we progressing? What's the plan to get back to, first of all, League One? How are we going to address that? What are we doing with our youth? How are we going to bring those through? And could that be a money-making exercise for us? Because reality is, we are a selling club. There's no doubt about that. While we're in these depths of the leagues, we will be a selling club. But, I think we're producing some good talent at the moment. But you're right. What is the pathway into first team? How does that happen? How are you encouraging in that? And, at the moment they seem to send them out on loan, and then we don't hear anything about them, and then they come back. But I think we've got some fabulous talent coming through right now. But I think mainly the support unrest is down to, what's Rupp's plan for the club? What's the plan to get us back into where most fans would feel we need to be? What's the plan in regards to stadium and what we're going to do with the infrastructure? What's the plan in terms of our youth academy and how do we progress that to elite standard? These are all things that I think as a fan base, we will go, okay, I'd appreciate if Sparks came out and said, okay, guys, look, we've got a 2-year transition plan and we're going to give competitive budget, but, literally we're going to be rebuilding and this is our objectives. I think that most fans in our club will go, okay, fair enough. We'll accept kind of like, literally next season or so is going to be, maybe average. We might be average performance, but we're building them for something bigger. And that's all that Stockport County did. And they just became better and better as each season went by. And now this year, I think that they look a well thought out, well planned team across their structure. And I think that's what we're severely lacking. I think there is no plan. But then I go back to the point of, is that I feel that we have to have a supporters group to basically constructively challenge the club, and for the club to basically be open and honest about the things. Because I think what irritates fans is that there then is either a wall of silence or a denial of things. And I think that just antagonises the fan base. And what we don't want to happen is that 10-15% of the fan base go, I'm not renewing season tickets this year. I'm just not. Because I don't believe in the project and I don't believe in what the club's trying to do. There's no plan. I think that's the death of us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is, personally, I think, are you going to trust Ryan Sparks if he says, well, I've got this 2-year plan? Are you going to trust him to deliver? That's the problem now. He's got a reputation of I wouldn't say failing, but well, I suppose I would. Yeah, he's failing to deliver on the promise. So, I mean, we've been promised we're going to be in the Championship by Julian Rhodes, Edin Rahic, and it isn't even about getting back to the Championship. I mean, I think a lot of us probably started supporting the football club quite low down the league. I mean, when I first started supporting them, it was the back end of the Doherty era, and you used to watch players that they weren't the most talented, but there always seemed to be a plan and a structure. Even pre-Richmond, it seemed to be coherent what was happening, and it hasn't been coherent since Richmond left. If we're being brutally honest, I mean, you've gone through your Todds, you've gone through your Brian Robsons, you've gone through your Peter Taylors, we've gone through manager after manager after manager. All these players that just seem to, selling Naki Wells and bringing in Aaron McLean. What was the plan there? I mean, really, there just didn't seem to be any thought process, and that's pre-Rupp and Sparks, and then you've got the likes of Curtis Guthrie and God knows how many, Nathan Delafonso, Colin Lavery, and who's thinking that these are good signings? They're really not. They haven't got a great record. They don't fit into what we should be trying to do. But the thing is, we don't know what we are trying to do. Again, it goes back to the plan. What are we trying to do?
I think that's part of the problem as well. And I've heard a couple of comments, and it's been said quite a few times actually, where fans have said, we've lost our identity. We don't have an identity anymore. And and then the other side of things as well is that, and somebody's just said it actually in the comments on tonight's space, Ryan Sparks seems to take criticism very personally, from what I can see, and I have to agree with that. And Mr. Wright said that on comments, so. Is it an identity? Have we lost our identity? Because, like you, I started watching, when we were playing Aldershot in the old 4th Division many, many years ago. So, the first bit of success that I saw was with Cammy when we beat Notts County at Wembley. That was the first experience I'd ever had of it, and it was the finest time in my life, beating Blackpool and all that. But the reality is that for many fans, they've not known any success whatsoever. So, and if you ask our fans, what's our identity, what do we stand for, would they be able to answer you?
Would Ryan Sparks and Stefan Rupp? I would say no. That's the problem. They don't know they don't have an identity in mind. I think our identity has been for a lot of years to just survive, and that's not enough anymore. It's football's changed probably for the worst all across the board. I mean, you look at nobody is a massive fan of the money that's killing the sport. I mean, it's never going to go back to watching the likes of Colin Hoyle kicking 7 shades out of someone on the pitch. You're never going to get them days back. I mean, but a club needs an identity, something for the fans to get behind. And I know it's dirt cheap for us. It's tough and certainly just to go to watch the club, but it's about the time, not the money. You work all week and it's a slog. And then if you're going out on the Saturday and that's a slog as well, it gets to the point where you think, well, I can do other things. I don't have a lot of spare time. I should be doing other things, and stuff don't get done around the house that needs doing because you're putting time into the football club. They need to build something to get behind, and that's the problem. There's nothing there. It's just one manager after another, 20 players a season after another. You never get attached to anybody because they're all in and out, and you're filling the squad full of loan players that I honestly couldn't name them all. I wouldn't have a clue, and that's the problem. You look at the heritage numbers, which I think's a great credit to the football club, but how many heritage numbers have been dished out over the last 5 years? It's crazy.
Interested to know that, mate, actually, to be fair, because there has been a fair few.
It's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous, the amount of players that we've gone through. And you mentioned Kamara. I mean, we went through 40-odd players that season, but you were attached to all them players because they all contributed. And I don't think it's... the quality of the players is poor this season, but I don't think it's down to a lack of effort as such. I don't think it's down to, them not wanting to be here. I just don't think they're the right players. And that's, again, it's down to the plan. You got a director of football, he appoints a manager in towards the plan. all the signings are brought in towards that plan. But what is the plan? That's the club's biggest problem. There's no plan.
Oh, none that they've relayed to us, mate. They're right now.
Well, that's ridiculous. If they've got a plan and they're not relaying it to the fans,
I'm just playing devil's advocate. You know, obviously,
I get what you're saying, but it's ridiculous if that's the case. It really is.
Thanks very much, my friend. I appreciate your thoughts. Jamie, you've had your hand up for a little while. What would you like to say, my friend?
Yeah, but it's just, we're speaking about this plan. Can anybody remember when Truman and Sellers were actually given the job permanently? Ryan Sparks actually came out and said the plan for this club is to develop the academy and to make money through the academy, and no matter who the manager is, that plan will keep on going in the background.
Do you feel that we've achieved that?
No, I don't, because as soon as we get a new manager in, that plan just goes absolutely tits up and falls apart. So, but my question would be, I'd love to the supporters trust to have been here on this, or the supporters board would have been to ask them, did you hold the club accountable? So I think we do need a plan, and we certainly do need a plan, but we need a plan that as supporters we can hold those in charge accountable to when things don't go by, or if they're not following the plan. Because if there is a plan, supporters will get behind it as long as it's being followed, or as long as they can see what is going on. But it needs to be held accountable, in my opinion.
I'm not sure that's true, Jamie. If the plan is to produce and nurture young talent with a view to selling them on, would our fans really get behind that? Because that means playing them regular, and if they're not up to scratch, most of our fans want results and want results now. That's the problem. We haven't got time to nurture players. So if that's the plan, then a majority of our fan base won't get behind it.
Do you think if the club were quite public, said, look, this is our kind of 5-year plan, this is how we're going to transition to what we believe will then make us a successful club? Because Chris on quotes has just said panic buys every season, and to be fair, the last 2 windows, a lot of fans have said, yeah, these are 2 poor windows. We've brought in players that really are not good enough. But do you think that if the club, because this is one of the things we'd like to push for, is that the club base says, here's the plan for us, this is what we're going to try and do, and trying to get then supporters to buy in on it. But if the fans were aware, do you think then that fans would be more accommodating because they knew what the long-term goal was?
I think they would personally, and personally, I've yet to see a fan that's not wanted somebody from the academy to come up and play on the pitch. Look at the love that Bobby gets week in, week out. People, we want to see our homegrown players coming through, breaking into the team.
Yeah, but Jamie, he's producing though, so that's the difference between Bobby. You go back to what was that young fullback called? The double-barreled name.
Oh God, I remember. Oh, I can't remember, mate.
We had him and we had young Staunton at the time. We both got long-term deals.
Yeah,
the amount of pelters they got.
Cousin Dawson, that's the one. The amount of pelters they got. They were young lads and they were getting proper harassed on social media, and it's like, come on, guys, the young lads try to make a living, they try to break through and learn the trade, and they were getting some proper pelters. I understand Bobby's different because Bobby is delivering week in, week out. So whilst that's happening, people will get behind him, but it doesn't always work like that.
See,
that's football, though, isn't it? Unfortunately, these days. I mean, you look at England players; they get a lot of grief, and unfortunately, players have to be a little bit stronger now. I completely agree with what you're saying, Wayne. But I mean, you're saying about would our fans have the patience to get behind youth players? I mean, as long as I've supported the football club, we've had youth players coming through, and you look at the likes of Dean Richards, Des Hamilton, players like that. I mean, again, I'm showing my age, but even the likes of Luke O'Brien, and I shouldn't say his name, Luis Emmanuel, who ended up in trouble. They came into the team, and fans got behind them because they were good enough. So it's on the club to support these younger players to cope with the likes of Twitter, and maybe these players may have to put aside social media just for the early stages of their career, certainly.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the best youth players that we've ever had is Stuart McCall.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. yeah. But I mean, it's possible. It's just, it goes back to the plan. The club, you know, a lot of people talk about Mark Truman, and I saw he get a lot of criticism, but I mean, it is ideal to be helping these young kids that have just broke into the squad, surely, because he's worked with them in the past. You know, he's built a relationship with them, and he's basically shoulder, you know, somebody who could put his arm around these kids and help them within that squad environment. So there's things you can do to help youth players through. And I'm not saying, right, we're going to have 11 players on that pitch that have come through our youth system, because realistically, that never will work. You know, it's just not going to work. So you need look at the United team with the class of '92. They had your Roy Keanes and your Cantonars that helped them through. We've had people like Gary Jones helping the younger players like Narky Wells and stuff. So you've got to have them older heads, but they've got to be the right older heads, not injury prone ones. And that goes down to, again, a recruitment plan. Where we're getting these players from that are injury prone all the time, and it's just so frustrating. It really is.
I agree. I'm just my only concern is a lot of the fans have seen us stick in this league now for many years, and far too many for us to be happy with. They want quick fix. They want us to get out of this league. Does that involve playing kids that's going to consistently make those mistakes and therefore hold us back from getting that promotion? It'd be good to see a poll to see how many would actually go with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if quite a lot turned around and went, no, I just want to get out of this league. We've been in here far too long.
Thanks, Wayness. Tom has joined us. Tom, it's nice to see you, my friend. Over to you.
Hi, sorry about that. Yeah, just chipping in here for what it's worth. I do a podcast each week at Bradford City, so I'm in and around the club. It's called A Season with Bradford City. You're going to have a listen to it.
It's brilliant. Thank you, mate.
I've had people like Ryan on, obviously speak about the ownership and things, for what it's worth. Just a couple of points from me. Great setup, by the way, so well done for hosting it. I do similar ones, and this is really good, really interesting. In terms of a long-term plan, there aren't many clubs that do publicly go on record or say this is what we want to do. Of course, they'll say, I think Ryan's even said they'd love to get to the Championship. That's where he'd ideally like to be. So that's the first thing. Second one, the other side of the coin regarding recruitment, and we can argue all day long about the quality of play and if it's right and the size of the squad, which are two sort of talking points at the moment. But the other side of the coin is you could argue that Mark Hughes was given not everything he wanted, because no manager gets everything they want. But from speaking to Mark Hughes on and off the record in the pre-season, I think honestly he was pretty happy with the squad he has. Now we can all sit here and say, well, that player shouldn't have been there. That's just opinion. You can go to Manchester United, Man City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Alaves, whoever you want to go to. Everybody will disagree with the quality, but I think Mark Hughes was relatively happy with what he had, certainly at the close of the window. So the other side of the coin is the players now. You know, you're changing three systems in 3 months. He went 3-5-2, 4-4-2 after the Grimsby draw at home, and then back to 3-5-2 again. I actually think, having been at the game last night and watching from after half time of the weekend, that you might just have hit rock bottom there at half time against Notts County, and that this 3-5-2 with this kind of zonal press that Graham's Graham Alexander's introduced might actually work. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud there. Somebody just made a good point there about Truman. Graham said last week in the press conference that Truman is his eyes in the stand up high, so he's not spending time in dugout at the moment. He's in the sort of stand watching sort of area, the formations and things. But I agree, he's capable of doing that. But I think bringing people through as well. And then I compared Bradford City to Manchester United actually, because my initial job was covering Manchester United, and the off-field trouble at Manchester United isn't always to blame for some of the performances on the pitch. And while we can argue about ownership and who's in charge and who's doing what job, sometimes the players are not doing it, and I think, or tactically things aren't right. And I think probably we saw that at before half time on Saturday against Notts County. But I think actually what we saw afterwards was, from half time, is a manager getting the best out of what he had. And I think yesterday, yes, it was a depleted Barnsley team, but I think some of the sort of tactic situations, if you like, hate that word, and approach can give Bradford City fans hope from here on in, I think. So are they going to get automatic promotion? Absolutely not. Playoffs, you'd imagine it's unlikely. But that's what we're all here for. We're here to dream out. We're here to hope we can do well. In terms of that long-term plan, just final point before I go, League One and League Two, I think somebody made a good point that said we just want to get out of this league and just get into League One or whatever, which is great. But actually, I think some kind of plan would be good and better than that. Bradford City are a club that are, for me, a championship side at best. Sorry, not best, but are a championship side. They should not be in this division. You know, you can't create atmospheres like the Wrexham one and some of the other things I've seen. The interest around players and the club and the noise and all that. Like, it just doesn't happen in League Two. So you need to get out of that. But I don't think get out and let's get into League One. I think you should be aiming for, right, okay, how do we get to the top half of the championship and work back like that? And anyway, that's my thoughts. Anyway,
Tom, thanks so much for coming on and sparing some time for us, mate. Your podcast's very good. I've listened to them, so keep up the good work, mate. I would be interested to know how Ryan was with you when you interviewed him, as to whether you felt he was guarded on things or was he quite relaxed and open with you?
No, I've had Ryan's number for about 3 or 4 years, and because I've lived in the area and I've got family and boys, I decided that I would like to buy a Bradford season ticket this season and go down and watch Bradford City. I've watched Bradford City since when Danny Forrest was playing. Somebody mentioned Lewis Emmanuel there. I was brought up in Guiseley, so I know the area, I know the players, I know the club. So it wasn't alien to me when I was walking into it. But when I met Ryan the first time, I WhatsApped him via a company that I know and said, look, I'm thinking of this next season, no drama. And he was open to it. So, you know, I'll be at the press conference tomorrow. And then he's given me pretty much all access I want. And then when I opened the podcast and I interviewed him, I said, I can send you the questions over. The first thing he said was, no, don't worry about that. We'll just go with it. So in terms of Ryan Sparks and how he's been with me, he's been pretty decent with me. I can't complain.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
No
Jake, welcome, my friend. You've had your hand up for a little bit. What do you want to say?
Hi, mate. Thanks for having me on. Really good space tonight. Right. Really enjoying it. Just for Tom, off the back of what he's just said there, really, obviously he touched on recruitment and Hugh's been happy with what he's got. It did feel to me, and I know to a few others, that towards the end of the transfer window, we sort of panicked to bring people in. Obviously, we started with that 3-5-2 formation, and then he switched it sort of early in the season to that 4-2-3-1, bringing in a few wingers and players to pad that out. And you know, I don't know if Tom's got any insight to this or anybody else's thoughts on it, but it just feels like we didn't have much of a plan, and it felt a bit panicked towards the end there. It's like, all right, 3-5-2 is not working, we're going to need to switch it up, we need to get more players in to deal with that.
I think, and you guys will know better, but I think Wrexham and Notts County, when they went up, and I think Carlisle at certain points last season, they played 3-5-2. So I think, first of all, the Carlisle defeat in the playoffs, plenty's been said and written about that. I think that hurt Hughes, that hurt the club. Certainly the second leg performance. I think that after that, they decided on 3-5-2 pretty much not after that game, but in the pre-season discussed it. And then the recruitment that you mentioned was built around playing 3-5-2. So you look at the game at Crawley with the three at the back, obviously, unfortunate sending off that game. But so everything was, not everything, but the approach was taken from a 4-4-2 into a 3-5-2. And that is how they recruited, because they thought it worked. And I think they probably looked at the likes of Wrexham, Notts County. Carlisle played it a little bit on Paul Simpson. I know he likes that formation. I think there's been some success with it. So I think that was what Hughes' thinking was. Now there's different ways of playing it. 3-5-2, possession-based, playing backwards, across the lines, whatever you want to call it, is one way of playing it. What you saw in the second half against Notts County, marking the half spaces, pressing in certain situations and not, is Graham Alexander and Chris' approach to 3-5-2. So that's slightly different. So the different approaches to how you do 3-5-2. People say Hughes does 3-5-2, Graham Alexander does 3-5-2. Yeah, they do, but it's a different way that Graham's doing it, which is why I think, having seen them against Notts County second half, I mean, watching it at the first half, playing the 4-4-2 system, I was very concerned, as I'm sure most of you guys were. It wasn't. It just looked. I was worried. But then, having seen that in the second half and how they played last night, Jason's on this call as well. I can see the space. Jason McEwen is a friend of mine. We went down. We sat pretty near the dugouts, and we could hear what Graham was saying. Some of the other coaching staff were doing, and it felt like it'd been executed properly. Now, is this going to be a 2013 moment where you're hovering mid-table and Phil Parkinson guides you into the playoffs last minute? I'm not sure. However, I think if you'd have started with this approach to 3-5-2 with the players you've got, I think that helps. One talking point has been Andy Cook, and Graham said to me that he felt at times this season, he felt very isolated. So when I interviewed Harry Lewis earlier on in the season, Harry said to me that, on the podcast, said that Cookie's role, or something along the lines of Cookie's role's changed. He's now expected to press more at the top, up front. Now, we could argue that Andy Cook, being the striker he is, he's not probably designed to be pressing left, right and centre through the middle. You get Tyler Smith up there with him, who's a lot closer to him, maybe doing some of the legwork for him. It looks like a completely different proposition. Potentially adding a returning Jake Young in January, then all of a sudden you've got a goal scorer in Andy Cook, and then this year's had a top 1, 2 or 3 goal scorer coming into the team. So this style of 3-5-2 I think can work. It has worked 14 before, getting him out of the league, getting him out of the National League into this league, and from this league into League One. But the approach has to be right. I think it looks better with Graham Alexander than it did under Mark Hughes. And the recruitment in the summer was designed to fit Mark Hughes' style of 3-5-2 and not Graham Alexander's. Sorry if that's a bit long-winded.
No, it's fine. It's actually answered a question that was posed by Liam Gill in comments, Tom, which he was saying, he said he felt the problem was that we had no identity from on the football, changing different formations and things like that. So hopefully, Liam, that's answered that, and be interested to hear what your thoughts are. Wayne?
Yeah, just again following up on Tom's comment. So Jake had originally asked the question, what did we think there was panic buys at the end of the window? Now we get that the whole prior window during pre-season was based towards this 3-5-2, but from the 28th of August to the 1st of September, the actual deadline day, we made 3 signings in Wilson, Tulloch and Afaka. All wingers. So where would a winger fit in the 3-5-2? So we
okay, let me just jump in there.
Down the route of this ain't working. We need to have a second plan. So did that then? I think that's where Jake's getting the panic buys from.
But just let me jump in there quickly, and then I'll leave you guys to it, because, like I say, I'm enjoying listening. You don't want to hear what I'm going to say, because you guys are far more qualified Bradford City fans than I am. Odwar played last night as a winger. Just to point out that you can put wingers in the system somewhere. But secondly, the recruitment for loan signings is horrible when you're in League Two, because you're waiting for the Premier League teams to get everybody in and then decide who they want to get rid of. By which point, you could have spoken to somebody you think you're going to get, and then the Premier League team decide they want to keep them. Not only that, the Championship teams normally get first sort of dibs on, the best of the rest of the Premier League. If they decide they don't want them, go to League One and so forth. So, loan signings, I agree with you. Yes, we knew we wanted to play 3-5-2. Likes of Tulloch, signing Wilson from the Welsh team, I think it's TNS, do on paper look like not 3-5-2 signings, if that's a correct sentence. However, there is an element of them waiting with the loan deals, because you have to wait for all the big sort of ships to move and take stock of what they've got above you before you can bring in. I think Patterson's been an excellent signing when he's been there and been fit. I think he's brilliant. I think he fits in a whole host of things, and I think you'll get the best out of people like JB Walker in a more central role. But anyway, thank you for having me on. I just wanted to drop that in. Hope it was helpful. Great speaking to all.
Cheers, Tom.
We'll all catch up soon. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for your time, Tom. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to probably bring this to an end now, because we have been going on for quite a long time now. I'm really appreciative of all of you joining us for our first space. It's my first ever space, actually. I speak every now and again on some, but I don't normally host them, so it's an eye-opener from that point of view. The final thought really is that the club that we all love, and it proves that while we're sat here, been on for an hour and 40 minutes, has had challenges and continues to do so. There is various people unhappy across our supporter base. We want to unite them. I've got a long list of various different things based on comments and chats we've had tonight. We are still going to pursue the fans forum. We think that's important, needs to come sooner rather than later. But there's also a lot of other things that we need to look at. The kind of derision about Ryan Sparks at the moment, the Rupp situation. We're also going to try to push to find out what the plan is for the club and plan for progression of the club. We're going to try our best. We will make mistakes, but we'll never lie, and I'll never lie. So we're going to try and do that. If you aren't a member of Bradford City Fans, please go on our website. It's bradfordindependentfans.co.uk. Just join us. You're not asked to do anything unless you want to. We're looking for more people to help us and come and join our steering group. So please consider that if you feel we can provide a little bit of time. But for now, I think that we have to get behind Graham Alexander best we can. He's been dealt a hand that he's got. I'm sure he'll change things around. I actually have more confidence in Graham Alexander right now than I've had in previous managers, if I'm being honest. I do feel something about him. So we'll see what happens with that. I might be proven wrong. Who knows? But come and join us. Thanks for attending tonight. I really appreciate your time. If anybody wants to write to us because they didn't really want to speak tonight and want us to look to things to pursue for you or fit onto our agenda, then please write to us. Again, you can write to us via the website or hello at bradfordindependentfans.co.uk, or you can DM me directly. I'm at Bantam1873. But for now, thanks very much for listening. Thanks for your thoughts and your input. I really appreciate it. And up the chickens. All the best.
Cheers, Steve.